It is Friday, January 31st, 2020. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of coin metal. It was a very fun Get Your Ass Kicked at Jiu-Jitsu Friday. I got a lot of stuff in on the bottom from a kind of a if you're mounted situation, you know. A little bit of Oompa escape stuff, and just mild modifications on that age-old and terribly effective method of getting people off of you. And I really like the Oompa escape, and I've worked a couple little things on it, and I got to be honest, I really enjoyed the format of today's class because we did things just a little bit differently, okay? And like the way that it was different that I liked was that first we did the Oompa escape, and I can't remember what the adaptation on it was, but there was an adaptation on it. Like, you know, you put the elbow in, you put the frame in, you buck them forward, and then there was something on it where I'm having trouble remembering it now. I can't remember it for some stupid reason. Anyway, the first one I forgot, but the second one was we were working it from the top, whereas if you were on top of your opponent and you were in full mount and you want to get that elbow out of the way, you know, if they got that frame in, you know, where you grab the elbow and you pull up on it, you know, so that you can fit your knee up tighter. And then you kind of progress really high up into a high mount. And, you know, that sets you up for a couple things. You know, it sets you up for, like, the arm bar. Or, you know, if you did want to go for it, you probably could work it into a triangle if you really wanted to. But normally it would be an arm bar, I would think, at least. Oh, and also like the bow and arrow choke. It's almost like you're up high enough to go straight over to triple threat. Like if your opponent rotates one side or the other, that you would be in a good position to go from there into just straight up triple threat. And we worked that a little bit. But the thing that I liked the most was what we did from the counter, right? So the counter of the counter. And I liked it a lot because it's a situation I tend to find myself in, and I've been looking for something other to do when I'm in a situation when I've got my opponent is, you know, full mount on me, trying to get from there to a more positive position without having to give up my back. And this one, it seemed like the better way to go about it, where you do the frame, right? And your opponent reaches down and grabs the elbow and tries to pull it up so they can get that high mount on you, right? Well, when they do that, they put their own arm in position for you to reach up over the top of their forearm and around their bicep to their tricep, right? And then bump them right on over into an Oompa escape. Or it would turn into a sweep, and you would end up in full guard. But nonetheless, it's a much better position to be in than on the ground and in deep trouble with somebody on top of you. So yeah, like I said, I really liked the progression because, you know, we did the initial setup, the escape for that, the counter for the escape, and then the counter for the counter of the escape, working into another escape. I liked that a lot. You know, it's like I kind of wish that was like the progression of more of the classes that I was taking. But, you know, hey, each instructor has their own way to go about it, and each instructor comes to the class differently each time you get in front of them. And so I like that, honestly, because the variance in stimuli keeps me from getting bored and stuck in too many bad patterns of behavior, you know, because we're concentrating on different things each time. And so yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. I did a little bit of sparring today. There was 10 minutes total, 2 5-minute rounds, and the last round we did was slap jitsu, And that's basically positional sparring with the caveat that both opponents are capable of slapping their opponent. And so, yeah, I got my opponent quite a few times. And I even got him in a triangle choke once. But that really wasn't the point. It was, the person being attacked, you're trying to avoid being attacked and also attacking, finding your opportunities to attack. And I probably could have set up the standing arm bar a couple of times, where I had both arms secure and I was reaching over both of them, and I had my opponent's or my teammate my opponent or whatever. I had his posture compromised, and so I had his head down and I was kind of reaching around the back. And that's an excellent setup for a couple of things. One of the ones I really like is a collar choke. And just straight up zipper choke, where you grab a hold of the collar with your left hand, right? And you push it behind your opponent, and then you bend your elbows, you're bringing your opponent in, and you get your forearm on the other side of their head, right, while you're still holding their gi. And then you either from the bottom, or the top, you grab the other lapel with your right hand and cinch it up. Chokey. Anyway, so yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was very, very productive. I did go up against a black belt in the first 5-minute round, and he was definitely taking it very, very easy on me, which I appreciated because I am still injured. But nonetheless, I managed to avoid being choked or getting armbarred or triangled, and he pretty much set up every single one of those things on me. But I managed to escape the 5-minute round without any submission on my side, and I did manage to pass his guard one time. Like I said, there was a couple of times when I was pulling my elbows back in because I'm like, oh shit, I'm really exposed there. And the fact of the matter is, if he was going really fast, that would have been armbar all day long. He'd have planted, he'd grabbed around my elbow, planted a hand on my head, whipped the leg around, armbar. And so, I was just trying to stay conscious of the places where I was leaving myself exposed and trying to retain the idea of getting out of the guard position that I was in, because I was in his full guard pretty much the whole time. Getting out of the full guard and getting it around to where I'm passing his guard. And I got close once, where I did manage to pass his guard, but I think he swept me. So, I don't know how much that accounts for anything, but like I said, I did manage to avoid being submitted, and I had to get kind of tricky. At one point, I kind of flipped my whole body over and flipped him over in the process. Kind of a hitchhiker move, with the exception that I flipped my entire body over first. Anyway, managed to escape the armbar a couple of times via that method. And the second time I did, I think that one I actually set up for the guard pass with, where I could feel the same approach coming on, and so I put my hand down near his waist and kind of tilted over on it and pinned his legs down while I got my leg out. Or I don't know that I pinned his legs down, but I made it to where it was difficult for him to just wrap around my legs and keep me locked down. But yeah, like I said, I'm sure it's because it's only because the man took it easy on me. He's way faster and way more skilled than I am. So yeah, nonetheless, escaped without a submission on me, and I feel pretty good about that. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw down into some music, and of course we're going to start with some body count. I have no idea where we're going to go today, but I'm sure it'll be fun no matter what. And so here it is. Talk shit, get shot. First dance here on Coin Metal. And that was Fear Factory with Bone Scraper. Yeah, that last one was a little unintentional, but, we just had to go with it. Anywho, as far as what I do intend to get into today, I had no idea, actually. I just kind of dug around there, and I did have a few tabs open in my browser. I usually do. Anyway, the first one I got here is on Cointelegraph. Trezor wallets can be hacked, Kraken reveals. And this first one is by Audrey Shevchenko. But going by the picture here and the name, Andrew can actually go one of two ways there. It can either be a male or female. In this case, yes, penis. And this one was authored approximately 10 hours ago. Kraken Security Labs revealed on January 31st that Trezor hardware wallets and their derivatives can be hacked to extract private keys. Though the procedure is quite involved, Kraken claims that it, quote, required just 15 minutes of physical access to the device. Quote, the attack requires a physical intervention on the Trezor wallet by either extracting its chip and placing it on a special device or soldering a couple of critical connectors. The Trezor chip must then be connected to a, quote, glitcher device that would send it signals at specific moments. These break the built-in protection that protects the chip's memory from being read by external devices. The trick allows the attacker to read critical wallet parameters, including the private key seed. Though the seed is encrypted with a pin-generated key, the researchers were able to brute force the combination in just 2 minutes. The vulnerability is caused by the specific hardware used by Trezor, meaning that the company cannot easily fix it. It would need to completely redesign the wallet and recall all existing models. In the meantime, Kraken urged Trezor and KeepKey users not to allow anyone to physically access the wallet. In a coordinated response published by Trezor, the team minimized the impact of the vulnerability. The company argued that the attack would show visible signs of tampering due to the need to open the device, while also noting that the attack requires extremely specialized hardware to perform. Finally, the team suggested users activate the wallet's passphrase feature to protect from such attacks. The password is never stored on the device, as it is added to the seed to generate the private key on the fly. Kraken also noted that this is a viable alternative, though researchers refer to it as, quote, a bit clunky to use in practice. The feature also adds significant responsibility to each user. The passphrase needs to be complex enough not to be easily brute forced as well, and forgetting it would completely lock out users of their money. Cointelegraph reached out to Kraken for additional details, but had not received a response as of press time. The article will be updated as more information becomes available. Yeah. So, there's always the issue with these specialized hardware wallets that you'd forget your passphrase, or that they could somehow be compromised. And it's really an issue of standing still. It's like if you have a significant amount of Bitcoin in a wallet that several people had the public key for, the possibility that they would be able to compromise your wallet via the knowledge or acquisition of the public key is always there. Whether or not there's enough money there to make it actually worth it, that's another question. And there are several ways that your public key can be made into a liability. But just the same, it requires a significant amount of computing time and whatnot to actually crack it. It requires a cash investment. So, it's a matter of keeping a little bit of coin in each wallet that anyone may have actual access to or knowledge of. Like if they've sent you money, send it to another wallet that nobody knows who's associated with it. That way you minimize the likelihood that anybody will be chasing it down or be able to associate the coins directly to you. It's always easy enough to keep it really hidden and don't tell anybody you have it, of course. But yeah, the issue of wallet security and fund security, it's not going to go away anytime soon. As a matter of fact, I believe in the longer term it is going to show this whole idea of ultra surveillance and keeping track of everybody and keeping track of everything they do and all that other shit. It's going to show that to be a big security suck. That by exposing ourselves in these ways and allowing that data to be retained and utilized on the fly is actually going to introduce itself as a greater liability to our security than it will be an addition to any kind of convenience. Because the level of information that we have to give up, or that we're being asked to give up rather, being required to give up, the articles and the ways that security is being broken don't go away. They stay out there in perpetuity. And so, if we make an account with somebody and we have to give them our address and whatever, and there's a keylogger on our machine and we have no idea about it, and we've just given our personal address and our phone number and our social security number and our Visa card number to some hacker. Or worse yet, the entity that we're making this account with, they get hacked, and hundreds of millions of people lose their information all at once. Or at least, their information is compromised all at once. And the problem is that these service providers do not need to accumulate as much data as they are being asked to acquire from you as a simple matter of doing business with you. And like I said, eventually we are going to find out that just the asking of the information that they do not need in order to conduct business with you is what is creating the security issue to begin with. I know this is like, somewhere off in left field, that this thinking that we can do business with one another without creating all kinds of security issues for one another, and that would be the way to avoid all of the security apparatus that we're trying to create, that we got to keep your social security number secure, so but we're going to ask for it in every fucking account that we make, because the federal government needs to know that you made a fucking Yahoo account, that you made a Gmail account, that you made a fucking Coinbase account. They have to know all of it, and they have to know it now, because you might be a terrorist. You might mean to do something bad to somebody at some time, and so we got to be able to look back in retrospect and accumulate all that data all up and find out that you still would have fucking killed that person anyway. Because the reason you killed them had absolutely nothing to do with any of the websites you went to, any of the messages that you received, any of the emails that you sent to anybody, any of the trades that you made on your Coinbase account, any of the coins that you own, any of the fucking magazines that you go to, any of the social media accounts that you have. It meant absolutely fucking nothing. It did absolutely nothing to make anybody any more secure or any more safe than they were 24 hours ago. You know, because in your reality, that decision to do that thing that killed that person happened 20 minutes ago. You know, it's like they pass off the idea that, you know, they can study your tracking, they can follow your Google searches and figure out that you're the kind of person that would do that. Fuck you, they can't do that shit. All they can tell is what you did, and again, in retrospect, you know, they can like see on the credit card records that you have that you made this purchase of gasoline at the Texaco station, and when you were driving home and you were caught on a CCTV camera or stoplight camera, they saw where you got cut off, and that caused you to do the road rage. You know, again, all in retrospect. But it had absolutely nothing to do with your browsing habits, and it had absolutely nothing to do with the character profile that they've managed to cobble together from all of your social media accounts. And nothing of any of that information would have made anybody any safer. But it makes you terribly vulnerable. Because people are studying shit like when you tend to come on to Facebook, because that indicates what time you get on and get off of work. And they're watching your spending habits, because that indicates the rough picture of when you get paid. And they're paying attention to shit like your personal address and your phone number and your email address. Because if they get access to these things, getting access to things like your Coinbase account is really fucking easy. Or at least a hell of a lot easier than it would be without that information. And I'm just talking about an intent attacker. I'm not even talking about a fucking hacker or a social engineer. Somebody who really knows what the fuck they're doing. I mean, you don't need to be one of these people in order to try and score somebody else's money. You could be just some fucking schmo with a Google search, and you can find all the articles of information that you would need in order to attack an individual. And again, we are made this vulnerable by the requirement of all the companies that we deal business with or do anything with to collect every bit of fucking data that they can on us. This is where it creates the liabilities. This is where the vulnerabilities are created. And as long as we're required to give up this information for every fucking thing we do unnecessarily, we will continue to subject ourselves to all these vulnerabilities unnecessarily. And we will continue to experience the fallout of them unnecessarily. You know what I mean? Like, really, I had a conversation with somebody the other day, and it's just like, you know, one of the best ways to make money is to avoid spending money that you don't have to. Well, if I don't have to buy some insurance because I'm not doing something that I'm going to need to be insured against, you know, like I don't skydive, so I don't need skydivers insurance, you know, right? I don't do, like construction or anything like that, so I'm not required to have the licenses or any of the registration for doing that. You know, I really think that in the longer term, it is going to cost us so fucking much to try and secure all of this fucking data. And the liabilities and vulnerabilities will be utilized and exploited to our least advantage. And it is going to fuck enough people up that there's going to be a major hue and cry, and people are going to say, stop collecting this fucking data on us. And I saw something recently, and I don't know if I actually clicked on the article or not, but it was suggesting that somebody was actually getting sued for, I guess by the FCC, or the FCC was warning that they had illegally given up our location. Here we go. This is on TechCrunch.com. Carriers violated federal law by selling your location data, FCC tells Congress. And this is authored by Devin Coldaway. TechCrunch, 12:03 p.m. PST on January 31st, 2020. So yes, penis. More than a year and a half after wireless carriers were caught red-handed selling the real-time location data of their customers to anyone willing to pay for it, the FCC has determined that they committed a crime. An official documentation of exactly how these companies violated the law is forthcoming. FCC Chairman Ajit Pai shared his finding in a letter to Congressman Frank Pallone, Democrat, New Jersey, who chairs the Energy and Commerce Committee that oversees the agency. Rep. Pallone has been active on this and prodded the FCC for updates late last year, prompting today's letter. Quote, I wish to inform you that the FCC's Enforcement Bureau has completed its extensive investigation and that it has concluded that one or more wireless carriers apparently violated federal law, Pei wrote. Extensive it must have been since we first heard of this egregious breach of privacy in May of 2018 when multiple reports showed that every major carrier, including TechCrunch's parent company Verizon, was selling precise location data wholesale to resellers who then either resold it or gave it away. It took nearly a year for the carriers to follow through on their promises to stop the practice, and now, 18 months later, we get the first real indication that regulators took notice. Quote, it's a shame that it took so long for the FCC to reach a conclusion that was so obvious, said Commissioner Jessica Rosenworcel in a statement issued alongside the chairman's letter. She has repeatedly brought up the issue in the interim, seemingly baffled that such a large-scale and obvious violation was going almost completely unacknowledged by the agency. I'd be willing to stipulate it's because one of the customers that it was being sold to was the NSA. Commissioner Brendan Starks echoed her sentiment in his own statement, quote, these pay-to-track schemes violated consumers' privacy rights and endangered their safety. I'm glad we may finally act on these egregious allegations. My question is, what took so long? Fuck you. Fuck you. Their licenses require them to keep that information and make it available. Their customers are the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, the DEA, police, state and federal police, continuing on. Chairman Pai's letter explains that in the coming days he will be proposing, quote, a notice of apparent liability for forfeiture or several of them. The complicated sounding document is basically the official declaration with evidence and legal standing that someone has violated the FCC rules and may be subject to forfeiture, essentially a fine. Right now, that is all the information anyone has, including the other commissioners, but the arrival of the notice will no doubt make things much clearer and help show exactly how seriously the agency took this problem and when it began to take action. Representative Pallone issued the following statement after receiving the letter. Following our long-standing calls to take action, the FCC finally informed the committee today that one or more wireless carriers apparently violated federal privacy protections by turning a blind eye to the widespread disclosure of consumers' real-time location data. This is certainly a step in the right direction, but I'll be watching to make sure the FCC doesn't just let these lawbreakers off the hook with the slap on the wrist. I expect it's going to go down like this. That these sanctions, they'll have some sort of enforcement action. The carriers will countersue the FCC because of the federal mandates that they were operating under. And then, when requested for the customer information, i.e. the people who bought the information that Verizon and others were collecting and giving to them, they will declare that in the interest of national security, they are unable to disclose exactly who the customers are. And then there will be a sidebar where the judge is notified of this fact, and then the case will be dismissed, and the FCC will shut the fuck up. And you'll continue to get tracked, and your real-time location information will be shared with those agencies, and so on and so forth. This is the tangled web they've weaved, and it was not without intent. I think the thing that really needs to happen is a class action lawsuit needs to be introduced by the people. People like that one dude who lost, $24 million, and they need to sue the federal government. And they need to sue them for introducing the TIA, Total Information Awareness mandates, and the DHS. They need to sue to break up and disband the DHS. And then they need to sue the individual entities within the DHS, such as the FBI, NSA, CIA, DEA. All of those guys need to be prosecuted for knowingly buying information that they knew was collected via an unconstitutional means, and thus was facilitated by an unconstitutional mandate. I think if that were to happen, a class action lawsuit of the citizens against the United States government, or at least the individuals that passed the legislation that like Patriot Act. All of the signers of the Patriot Act, sue them. Class action lawsuit against all of them. I'm sure we could get more than 220,000 signatories on that one. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down into some music. And, we got some Lamb of God playing. I like Lamb of God. Let's go ahead and scroll back up to them. And, no, too far up. Okay. And Lamb of God, there we go. And, let's go with Erase This, here on Coin Metal. And that was Sepultura with Nomad. Yeah. And so as far as where we're going to go next, I decided to pursue this Kraken thing just a little bit further. And then I found a whole bunch of articles on CoinDesk that I wanted to go through. So anyway, this first one's on blog.kraken.com. Kraken identifies critical flaw in Trezor wallets. And this is by Kraken FX, author January 31st, 2020. And I gotta make one minor adjustment if I can find the damn thing. course, I'm in the dark, so makes it a little... there we go. Kraken Security Labs has devised a way to extract seeds from both cryptocurrency hardware wallets offered from industry leader Trezor, the Trezor 1, and Trezor Model T. The attack requires just 15 minutes of physical access to the device. This is the first time that the detailed steps for a current attack against these devices has been disclosed. Here's how we did it. This attack relies on voltage glitching to extract an encrypted seed. This initial research required some know-how and several $100s of equipment, but we estimate that we or criminals could mass produce a consumer-friendly glitching device that could be sold for about $75. When we crack the encrypted seed, which is protected by a 1 to 9 digit PIN, but is trivial to brute force, the attack takes advantage of inherent flaws within the microcontroller used in the Trezor wallets. This unfortunately means that it is difficult for the Trezor team to do anything about this vulnerability without a hardware redesign. Until then, here is what you can do to protect yourself. Number 1, do not allow anyone physical access to your Trezor wallet. You could permanently lose your crypto. And number 2, enable your BIP39 passphrase with the Trezor client. This passphrase is a bit clunky to use in practice, but is not stored on the device and therefore is a protection that prevents this hack. This hack is very similar to our previous research against the KeepKey wallet, which is expected because the KeepKey is a derivative and all devices rely on the same family of chips. Trezor has known about these flaws since designing the wallets. Other teams like Ledger, Donjon have performed variants of this attack, though the full details have not been made public until now. These chips are not designed to store secrets, and our research emphasizes that vendors like Trezor and KeepKey should not solely rely on them to secure your cryptocurrency. We are fortunate to be working with the Trezor team to coordinate this disclosure, and you should also review their response. Pavel Rusnak, CTO of Satoshi Labs, adds, quote, "We are happy that Kraken Security Labs are investing their resources in improving the security of the whole Bitcoin ecosystem. We cherish this kind of responsible disclosure and cooperation." At Kraken Security Labs, we try to discover attacks against the crypto community before the bad guys do. We responsibly disclose the full details of this attack to the Trezor team on October 30th, 2019. We are going public with this vulnerability disclosure now so that the crypto community can protect themselves before a fix is released by the Trezor team. Technical details. Extracting seeds from Trezor wallets is not new territory. Trezor has implemented significant mitigations against a variety of previous hardware attacks, including successful mitigations against the glitching attacks demonstrated during the Wallet Fail talk at the 35th Chaos Communication Congress. This attack builds on that research to bypass the mitigations. Our attack begins by re-enabling the integrated bootloader of the processor using a fault injection attack. This integrated bootloader has functionality to read out the flash contents of the device, but verifies the protection level of the chip while executing the command. By utilizing a second fault injection attack, it is possible to circumvent this check, and then the entire flash contents of the device can be extracted, 256 bytes at a time. By repeating the attack, it is possible to extract all of the flash contents. Additionally, because the Tracer firmware utilizes an encrypted storage, we developed a script to crack the PIN of the dumped device, leading to a full compromise of the security of the Tracer wallets. The script was able to brute force any 4-digit PIN in under 2 minutes. This attack demonstrates that the STM32 family of Cortex-M3/Cortex-M4 microcontrollers should not be used for storage of sensitive data, such as cryptographic seeds, even if these are stored in encrypted form. The STM32F205 and the STM-ME32F427 are flash-based microcontrollers used in the Tracer 1 and Tracer T, respectively. These derivatives of the Tracer 1, which such as the keep key, also use the STM32F205, both STM32F2 and STM32F4 are ARM Cortex-M3 microcontrollers of the STM32 family of ST microelectronics. The STM32F2 and STM32F4 provides all of the peripherals necessary for implementing the hardware wallet, including the PLL, as well as interfaces such as USB. Most notably, the STM32F205 offers 2 common ARM programming interfaces, JTAG and ARM SWD. In addition to these programming interfaces, the STM32F205 also offers an integrated bootloader that can be used to program the device using interfaces such as UART, USB, and CAN. Flash and SRAM read protection on STM32. The STM32 family implements a security mechanism known as the read protection, or RDP. Because only non-volatile storage on ARM Cortex-M devices is flash memory, the RDP value is stored in a special page of flash memory that is otherwise inaccessible for writing from the application code. The RDP value is defined by the microcontroller configuration bits known as the option bytes. There are 3 option byte values corresponding to the 3 RDP levels on STM32 devices. Since the only non-volatile memory on STM32 microcontrollers is flash, this is also the only non-volatile storage for the cryptographic seeds and private keys. As a result, the flash must be protected from readout. Fortunately, the Tracer and all of its derivatives correctly utilize the RDP feature and are shipped and/or set RDP to RDP level 2, see Table 1, on first boot. As a result, in practice, non-development firmware on user devices are always kept at RDP2, RDP level 2, which prevents an attacker from accessing SRAM or flash. However, as demonstrated by the wallet.fail and chip.fail research, downgrading RDP2 to RDP1 can be reliably performed at boot with voltage glitching. Once a device is at RDP1, its SRAM can be read out over the ARM SWD debugging protocol. Because of the complex power-on reset logic of the STM32, a normal assertion of reset, i.e. soft reset, where the NRST line is held low for a short amount of time, does not result in a full power-on reset and re-execution of the boot ROM. This is also somewhat confirmed by the fact that a change in the security configuration, i.e. changing the open option bytes to change the RDP level generally requires power cycling the chip. Conversely, this also means that once a chip is successfully glitched and a resulting downgrade of the security configuration has taken place, this security downgrade will remain in effect until the chip is power cycled. This means that an attacker can repeatedly attempt to glitch the device, check whether the glitch was successful while still executing the boot ROM or very early into the application code without the application code loading. As a result, there are no countermeasures that are effective against this class of attack because the attacker can assure the glitch succeeded before executing the application code. Once an attacker successfully glitches a device, the attacker simply performs a soft reset of the target. The system continues to run at RDP1, allowing the attacker to arbitrarily read the contents of SRAM memory at any given point in time. This is particularly problematic as many of the libraries implementing the cryptography necessary for signing cryptocurrency transactions rely on loading sensitive information into SRAM for computation. Additionally, the cryptographic seed may be loaded into SRAM during wallet derivation, and the PIN of the user may be loaded for verification against user input. If the underlying firmware is verified, or if a checksum is computed to check the integrity of the firmware, parts or all of this data may also be exposed to the attacks. STM32 boot process and glitch parameters. Much of the behavior of a microcontroller is defined by values it reads at power-up. These include strapped pins that are read at boot pins at the STM32 documentation, and the security configuration bits, option bits in the STM32 documentation. Note, many of the following details have been determined through empirical reverse engineering of the boot behavior of the STM32F2. Most Cortex-M microcontrollers contain ROMs that are executed at boot, commonly referred to as boot ROMs. Boot ROMs are the first pieces of software executed by a chip and are responsible for loading important parameters such as the security configuration of the chip. Subsequently, the user application or application code is executed. In the case of the hardware wallet, this is the actual firmware of the manufacturer. Note, because the glitching attack described in this work targets the boot ROM code, it cannot be reliably mitigated by any countermeasures implemented at the vendor's in the vendor's firmware. A vulnerability in the firmware leads to an inherent hardware vulnerability that cannot be patched and requires the underlying hardware to be replaced completely with a new hardware revision. Presumably, because of the relative complexity of the STM32F2, the STM32 takes very long to boot, approximately 1.2 milliseconds to 1.8 milliseconds after power cycling the power supply to the chip. The boot time can be reliably measured in two ways, either measuring the power consumption of the device and measuring the amount of time that it takes for an initial rise in power consumption, for example with a LCM, or by observing the behavior of the reset NST/JTAG RST line of the microcontroller. Within the first 100 US to 200 US, the boot ROM of the chip is executed, re-enabling JTAG, SWD, and the integrated boot ROM bootloader. During the STM32 startup, the integrated boot ROM is executed before the application code, i.e. the wallet firmware, is executed. The boot ROM implements several checks that in turn configure the device's security state. These include enabling/disabling the JTAG and SWD debugging interfaces, as well as the integrated serial boot ROM bootloader. Because the STM32 family is flash-based, the only non-volatile memory available on these devices is flash. Since flash is the only non-volatile memory available on STM32s, the security configuration must be stored in flash as well. There is a special dedicated region of flash for storing the security and device configuration known as the option bytes. Most important for the overall device security, the option bytes contain the read protection level, which is effectively the security configuration of the device. The RDP levels range from level 2, in which all debugging interfaces and bootloaders are disabled, level 1, which limited bootloader functionality and limited debug capabilities are enabled, and level 0, which allows full access. By default, the Trezor and its derivatives are configured with RDP level 2, the strongest level of security offered by the STM32. That makes me wonder about some devices that you may have. And you know how they had their own little user interfaces embedded in them, like say digital TVs or something like that? There'll always be features that are grayed out. It makes me wonder if there's like some connection you can make, some hardware connection you can make that changes the accessibility levels that you have on your device, so it would open up the other options, you know? Anyway, continuing on. Let's see here. By default, the Trezor and its derivatives are configured with RDP level 2, the strongest level of security offered by the STM32. During boot ROM execution, the value of RDP is checked. If the value during the RDP check is not RDP2, then the boot ROM checks the bootstrapping of two dedicated I/O pins against a predefined boot pattern, i.e. the logic levels of the boot 0 and boot 1 pins. If the boot 1 pattern is not met, regular execution continues and the application code is executed from flash. However, if the pattern is met, i.e. in the case of the STM32F2, if boot 0 is high and boot 1 is low, then the integrated boot ROM serial bootloader and DFU bootloaders are enabled. Because the STM32 supports multiple serial protocols, one or more serial bootloaders are initialized and disabled when a valid synchronization condition is met on one of the serial interfaces. Once synchronized, the bootloader enters a mode where it receives and executes commands. STM32 boot ROM bootloader. The STM32 boot ROM bootloader supports a variety of commands, including commands capable of reading and writing flash. Let's see here. Does get version and read protection status, get ID, read memory, go, write memory, erase, extend erase, write protect, write unprotect, read protect, read out protect, and read out unprotect. Let's see here. So get gets the version and allowed commands supported by the current version of the bootloader. Get version and read protection status gets the bootloader version and the read protection status of the flash memory. Get ID gets the chip ID. Read memory reads up to 256 bytes of memory starting from an address specified by the application. Let's see. Go jumps to user application code located in the internal flash memory or in the SRAM. Write memory writes up to 256 bytes to the RAM or flash memory, starting with an address specified by the application. Erase erases from 1 to all flash memory pages. Extend erase erases 1 to all the flash memory pages using 2-byte addressing mode. Available only for version 3.0 USART bootloader versions and above. Write Protect enables the write protection for some sectors. Write Unprotect disables the write protection for all flash memory sectors. Readout Protect enables the read protection, and Readout Unprotect disables the read protection. The read memory command can be used to read up to 256 bytes from the flash of the device. Analysis of the boot ROM determined that this command performs a check for the RDP level every time the command is called, and only allows reading of flash contents if the RDP level is set to RDP level 0, bypassing the RDP check for the read memory command. The STM32s used in wallets like the Trezor 1 are set up to RDP level 2 at manufacturing time. This deactivates all debugging features and disables the integrated boot ROM bootloader. With voltage glitching, it is possible to corrupt the RDP value being read from the option bytes, as shown in the wallet.fail research. This effectively allows the attacker to downgrade the security configuration of a device from RDP level 2 to RDP level 1. A downgrade from RDP level 1 to RDP level 0 was determined to be infeasible in practice due to the hamming distance between RDP level 0 and RDP level 2. By performing a voltage glitch during boot ROM execution, it is possible to re-enable the JTAG and SWD debugging interfaces. It was determined that the integrated boot ROM bootloader can be re-enabled in a similar fashion. On the STM32F205, for example, by glitching at approximately 170 US into boot ROM execution, it is possible to re-enable JTAG and SWD. The system will effectively enable the JTAG and SWD interfaces with the same behavior, i.e. these same limitations in terms of access, as RDP level 1. It was determined that a voltage glitch at approximately 180 US into boot ROM execution will re-enable the integrated boot ROM bootloader with the same behavior as the bootloader at RDP level 1. Once communication with the integrated boot ROM bootloader is established, i.e. synchronization is complete, it is possible to issue commands available within the boot ROM bootloader at RDP level 1. For example, get ID. However, commands that are not available at RDP level 1 will result in the STM32 returning a NAC and failing. However, since it was determined that for certain commands, i.e. read memory, the boot ROM bootloader command handler checks if the RDP level of the device is RDP level 0 for each command issued to it. A voltage glitch timed to coincide with the RDP level check of the command handler while processing commands that are disabled for RDP levels other than RDP level 0 can result in a bypass of the RDP level check and the command succeeding as a result. This means that it is possible to glitch commands that should fail based on the device's RDP configuration, i.e. bypassing the command handler that should have returned a NAC. As a result, It is possible to execute commands that are not available at RDP level 1 or RDP level 2. If applied to the read command, it is possible to arbitrarily send flash memory from the microcontroller. Since the cryptographic seeds of many STM32-based wallets are stored in the STM32 flash, the seed storage of these devices can be compromised. Voltage glitching hardware set up to dump flash. A digital RDA7 FPGA development board was used for the glitch and pulse generation, as well as instrumenting the STM32 and accurately timing the glitch. An FTDI FT232H based an FTDI FT232H based breakout board and Adafruit FT232H was used for UART serial communication with the bootROM bootloader command handler. A Maxim Max 4619 multiplexer was used to multiplex between a nominal operating voltage up for the STM32 CPU core voltage and the glitch voltage, i.e. GND or 0 volt. A breaking Bitcoin board was used to simplify interlacing, which is a pin-compatible Trezor breakout board. The same attack could be performed in situ on a hardware wallet. However, removing the microcontroller and placing it in a socket was deemed to be easier than soldering all the connections, binary boot 0 and boot 1, for the in situ attack. Brute forcing the pin of a flash dump. The Trezor encrypts its confidential storage with a key that is derived from the pin and a salt. The salt consists of a hardware salt stored in the OTP bytes and a random salt from flash generated when the device is provisioned. The hardware salt is 44 bytes long and can be read with a single read of the option bytes. The Trezor organizes its storage in quote entries, which can be identified by their app value and their key value. The entry containing the salt, encrypted data encryption key, EDEC, and the encrypted storage authentication key, ESAC, and the pin verification code, PVC, can be found under the app value 0 and the key value 2. It is possible to locate this entry as it always starts with the hex bytes 02003C00. The full entry is 64 bytes long, so combined with the hardware salt read, it is enough to have 2 successful reads, as 256 bytes can be dumped per read. Once the salt, EDEC, ESAC, and PVC have been retrieved, an additional hardware salt needs to be retrieved from the OTP bytes. This can be done by re-enabling the SWD interface or by re-enabling the bootROM bootloader and issuing the corresponding read memory commands. On a single core CPU, using the Python PyCryptome or PyCryptodome library, a performance of roughly 85 hashes per second was achieved. This can be optimized significantly by utilizing a GPU. Even at this relatively slow speed, a 4-digit pin can be brute forced in under 2 minutes. Let's see here. Example of brute force script is hashtag !/user/bin/env space python 3 return, import hashlib, import sys, import argparse, import binasci, import struct from crypto.cipher, import cha-cha20_poly 1305, parser blah blah blah. I'm not going to read the whole fucking thing because it's a whole lot of script and it tells you how to do it all. Cool. Key derivation. The salt consisting of the hardware salt appended with the salt from the entry is used in combination with the pin, prefixed by a 1 and converted to a 32-byte little endian integer. Oh, let's see where we're at here. Okay, we're cool. Integer. To derive a key using PBKDF2-HMAC with SHA-256 and a derived key length of 362 bits. The first 256 bits of the result are used as the key encryption key, KEK, while the last 96 bits are used as the key encryption initialization vector, KEV. Key verification. The data encryption KDEC is generated from the EDEC by decrypting the EDEC using KEK and the KEV. The encryption algorithm used is cha-cha20 with the poly 1305 message authentication code. If the first 64 bits of the PVC are identical with the first 64 bits of the tag, then the PIN was correct and the DEC was successfully recovered. If you see something, earn something. As you can tell, our security team was always on the lookout for vulnerabilities that may pose a threat to our clients. If you're interested in helping us identify potential bugs on our platform, check out our bug bounty program. We pay out a minimum of $100 for each issue and potentially more for serious threats. Very good, very good. So yeah, that's a pretty interesting look deep down into the idea of a hardware hack on a tracer, and we don't normally get that kind of perspective. And honestly, I don't use a tracer, so this really isn't an issue for me. But I mean, a lot of people do use them, and I can envision a time in the future where I may use one. So, this is certainly information to be keeping abreast of, But yeah, keep your shit safe. Don't even tell people you have it. Don't show people you got that fucking thing. Put it away somewhere where you're never going to see it or you're never going to be accessing it, and use it as like a long-term storage or something like that. But just don't even let people know you got the damn thing. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down into some music. And I've been wanting some Death Clock. And so here we go. Face Fisted, here on Coin Metal. That was Prong with Whose Fist Is This? Anyway. Yeah, so, as far as what else we're going to get into, a little more on security. We caught this other thing here, and this is on CoinDesk. Third-party trackers are pulling your data off Ring's Android app. And this was authored January 31st, 2020 at 10 UTC. And this is by Benjamin Powers. Ring, the home security company owned by Amazon, promises to watch the world around you and keep your property safe. But the doorbell app is also surveilling its users, sending personally identifiable information out to third-party vendors, according to a new report from Frontier Foundation. Actually, we're just going to go straight to that if we can. Gives us a link to do it. Yeah, here we go. So this is originally put on EFF.org, Ring Doorbell app packed with third-party trackers. And this is by Bill Buddington, and it was authored January 27th, 2020. So yes, penis. Ring isn't just a product that allows users to surveil their neighbors. The company also uses it to surveil its customers. An investigation by EFF of the Ring Doorbell app for Android found it to be packed with third-party trackers sending out a plethora of customers' personally identifiable information. 4 main analytics and marketing companies were discovered to be receiving information such as the names, private IP addresses, mobile network carriers, persistent identifiers, and sensor data on devices of paying customers. The danger in even sending small bits of information is that analytics and tracking companies are able to combine these bits together to form a unique picture of the user's device. This cohesive whole represents a fingerprint that follows the user as they interact with other apps and use their device. In essence, providing trackers the ability to spy on what a user is doing in their digital lives and when they are doing it. All this takes place without meaningful user notification or consent, and in most cases, no way to mitigate the damage done. Even when this information is not misused and employed for precisely its stated purpose, in most cases marketing, this can lead to a whole host of social ills. Ring has exhibited a pattern of behavior that attempts to mitigate exposure to criticism and scrutiny while benefiting from the wide array of customer data available to them. It has been able to do so by leveraging an image of the secure home, while profiting from a surveillance network which facilitates police departments' unprecedented access into the private lives of citizens, as we have previously covered. For consumers, this image has cultivated a sense of trust in Ring that should be shaken by the reality of how the app functions. Not only does Ring mismanage consumer data, but it also intentionally hands over that data to trackers and data miners. Findings. Our testing using Ring for Android version 3.21.1 revealed P2 delivery to Branch.io, MaxPanel.com, AppsFlyer.com, and Facebook.com. Facebook, via its Graph API, is alerted when the app is opened and upon device activations, such as app deactivation after screen lock due to inactivity. Information delivered to Facebook, even if you don't have a Facebook account, includes time zone, device model, language preferences, screen resolution, and a unique identifier which persists even when you reset the OS level advertiser ID. Branch, which describes itself as a deep linking platform, receives a number of unique identifiers: device _fingerprint _ID, hardware _ID, identity _ID, as well as your device's local IP address, model, screen resolution, and DPI. AppsFlyer, a big data company focused on the mobile platform, is given a wide array of information upon app launch, as well as certain user actions, such as interacting with the quote neighbors section of the app. This information includes your mobile carrier, when Ring was installed and first launched, a number of unique identifiers, the app you installed from, and whether AppsFlyer tracking came pre-installed on the device. This last bit of information is presumably to determine whether AppsFlyer tracking was included as bloatware on a low-end Android device. Manufacturers often offset the costs of device production by selling consumer data. a practice that disproportionately affects low-income earners and was the subject of a recent petition to Google initiated by Privacy International and co-signed by EFF. Most alarmingly, AppsFlyer also receives the sensors installed on your device. On our test device, this included the magnetometer, gyroscope, and accelerometer, and current calibration settings. Ring gives Mixpanel the most information by far. Users' full names, email addresses, device information such as OS version and model, whether Bluetooth is enabled, the app settings such as the number of locations a user has Ring devices installed in, are all collected and reported to Mixpanel. Mixpanel is briefly mentioned in Ring's list of third-party services, but the extent of their data collection is not. None of the other trackers listed in this post are mentioned at all on this page. Ring also sends information to the Google-owned crash logging service, Crash Analytics. The exact extent of data sharing with this device is yet to be determined. Interesting. It's got a whole bunch of readouts here. Methodology. All traffic we observed on the app was being sent using encrypted HTTPS. What's more, the encrypted information was delivered in a way that eludes analysis, making it more difficult, but not impossible, for security researchers to learn of and report these serious privacy breaches. Our dynamic analysis was performed using MIT-M proxy running on an access point to intercept and analyze HTTPS flows from an Android test device. To remove noise generated from the other apps, we installed the AF-Wall plus Firewall app and only allowed network traffic from Ring. MIT-M proxy generates a root X509 certificate, which is to be installed in the OS level certificate store in Android, allowing active interception to take place on otherwise secured traffic. This led us to the initial discovery that most root certificate was not being accepted as valid, and that some form of certificate pinning was being employed by the app. App-level certificate pinning is when an app validates the certificates of a remote server against a record of that certificate stored within the app, rather than validating against the list of root certificates within the OS. This is often used as a security measure to ensure that misissuance of certificates or mismanagement along the chain of trust in PKI does not compromise the integrity, confidentiality, or authenticity of HTTPS traffic. Unfortunately, it can also prevent security researchers and users from seeing exactly what information these devices are sending, and to whom. In the case of Ring, we initially observed all intercepted traffic upon launch being rejected and were not able to observe any communications. It was only through the powerful dynamic analysis framework FRIDA that we were able to inject code into Ring at runtime, which ensured that the certificate provided by our MIT-M proxy instance would be accepted as valid. This allowed us to inspect all HTTPS traffic sent through the app. Conclusion: Ring claims to prioritize the security and privacy of its customers, yet time and time again, we've seen these claims not only fall short, but harm the customers and community members who engage with Ring's surveillance system. In the past, we've illuminated the mismanagement of user information, which has led to data breaches and the attempt to place blame for such blunders at the customer's feet. This goes a step beyond that by simply delivering sensitive data to parties not accountable to Ring or bound by the trust placed in the consumer-vendor relationship. As we've mentioned, this includes information about your device and carrier, unique identifiers that allow these companies to track you across apps, real-time interaction data with the app, and information about your home network. In the case of Mixpanel, it even includes your name and email address. This data is given to parties either only mentioned briefly, buried in the internal page users are unlikely to ever see, or not listed at all. That's terrible. So yeah, there you have it. Don't be using that ring bullshit. You know, this again is one of those cases where this shit can be used to be tracking, like, when you come home. When is the time that you access your door when you enter your home? You know, if somebody was intent on breaking into your home and stealing a whole bunch of shit, they could be figuring out by accessing your data your average times outside of the house, when your house would be open for them to come by. The same applies to policing departments, where if they wanted to execute a warrantless search on your house, all they have to do is enter while you're not there, and then drum up some bullshit excuse why they had to hack your door or kick it down or whatever the fuck they did to get into your house and rummage through all your shit. This just gives them the ability to surveil your home without your knowledge. Terrible, terrible, terrible. But it is with that, as sad as it is, that I'd like to close out this episode. Thank you very much for listening. I certainly do appreciate the support. We will be back again on Monday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So until then, I want y'all to trade safe. Do your homework. And watch out for your own bunghole, because nobody else is going to do it for you. And so as far as our last dance is concerned, of course I haven't come up with one yet. That's just not how we do things here. Gotta wait until the very, very last moment. And you know what? I haven't played any Fear Factory tonight. And so I think this is good for our last dance. Autonomous combat system. Last dance here on Coin Metal. Thank you again for listening, and y'all have an excellent weekend. Good night.